Video opens with a montage of black and white historical footage of World War II. Soldiers marching, planes flying, Churchill, Roosevelt, and Stalin. The music is somber and reflective. Have you ever wondered what the world would look like today if history had taken a different turn? What if the outcome of the Second World War was unto one we read about in our textbooks? It's a chilling thought, but exploring these alternate histories helps us appreciate the world we have. So, let us step through the looking glass and imagine, what if the Axis powers had won World War II? Transition to a map of Europe in 1941, showing the extent of Axis control. To even begin this thought experiment, we have to pinpoint where things could have gone differently. Historians often point to a few key moments. What if the evacuation at Dunkirk had failed, crippling the British Army early on? Or what if Germany had focused all its might on defeating Britain in 1940, instead of opening a second front by invading the Soviet Union in 1941? Perhaps the most pivotal what if is the Battle of A German victory there could have secured the oil fields of the Caucasus, starving the Soviet war machine of fuel and potentially leading to its collapse. Let us imagine that scenario. A successful German summer offensive in 1942. With the Soviet Union neutralized, millions of German troops could be redeployed. The war in North Africa might have ended differently, and a full-scale invasion of Britain, codenamed Operation Sea Lion, would suddenly become a terrifying possibility. Meanwhile, across the globe, what about the United States? In this timeline, without a strong European front to support, America's Europe First strategy might have been untenable. Public opinion, already wary of the war, could have pushed for a negotiated peace with Germany to focus solely on the war in the Pacific against Japan. It's a bleak picture. A fragile peace treaty signed under duress, leaving a victorious Third Reich in dominant control of continental Europe. Visuals shift to stylized CGI renderings of a world under Axis rule. Think monumental, imposing architecture, and a subdued color palette. So, what would this new world look like? Let's start with Europe. The continent would be reorganized under the Nordnung, or New Order. Germany would directly annex vast territories in Eastern Europe, creating a sprawling empire. The horrifying ideologies of the regime would be implemented on a continental scale. Slavs and other groups, deemed inferior, would be subjected to forced labor, displacement, and unimaginable suffering as part of the Generalplan Ost. Western European nations like France, the Netherlands, and Norway would exist as puppet states, their economies and politics completely subservient to Berlin. Britain, even if unconquered, would be isolated and diminished, a shadow of its former self, constantly under the threat of its powerful neighbor. The cultural landscape would be devastated. Art, literature, and science would be censored, forced to conform to a rigid, narrow ideology. The vibrant, diverse tapestry of European culture would be systematically erased. The globe on screen spins to focus on North America. Across the Atlantic, the United States would find itself in a protracted Cold War, but not against the Soviet Union. The new adversary would be a technologically advanced and ideologically aggressive German Reich. This wouldn't be a struggle of communism versus capitalism, but of democracy against totalitarianism on a global scale. The nuclear arms race would have been against a different enemy, one with a terrifying head start in rocket technology. Thanks to scientists like Werner von Braun, V-2 rockets, which terrorized London, would be the precursors to intercontinental ballistic missiles aimed at American cities. The social fabric of America would be stretched to its breaking point. The fear of infiltration and espionage would be immense, potentially leading to even greater levels of paranoia and restrictions on civil liberties than we saw in our own timeline. Cold War. The global economy would be fractured, with two opposing blocs trading mostly within their own spheres of influence. The globe spinned again to Asia and the Pacific. And what of Germany's allies? In Asia, the Empire of Japan would dominate the greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere. This was, in reality, a brutal colonial empire. Nations like China, Korea, the Philippines, and Indonesia would suffer under harsh military rule, their resources exploited to fuel the Japanese war machine. The promised Asia for the Asiatics would be a cruel lie, replaced by the reality of Japanese supremacy. The world would be carved up between these two ruthless empires, with a fragile and tense border between their spheres of influence somewhere in Asia. Technological development would also follow a different path. German engineering would likely have continued its focus on military applications. We might have seen jet aircraft and guided missiles become commonplace far earlier. But would we have seen the computer revolution or the internet? It's doubtful. These innovations thrived on the open exchange of ideas, an academic freedom that would be crushed under such a regime. The space race might have happened, but it would have been a race to weaponize space, not to explore it for the sake of discovery. Return to a more hopeful, reflective tone. Show images of our modern, diverse world. International cooperation, cultural festivals, scientific advancements. Thinking about this alternate reality is deeply unsettling, but it serves a vital purpose. It underscores the immense sacrifices made by an entire generation to prevent this nightmare from becoming reality. The world we live in, with all its imperfections, was built on the foundation of their victory. The freedoms we often take for granted, the freedom to speak our minds, to choose our leaders, to live our lives without fear of a totalitarian state, were secured at an incredible cost. This alternate history isn't just a fantasy. It's a reminder. It shows us how fragile civilization can be and why we must always remain vigilant against the ideologies of hatred and intolerance. The victory in 1945 wasn't just an end to a war. It was a chance to build a better world, a chance that we are still working to fully realize today. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into a history that thankfully never was. What other historical what-ifs are you curious about? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this exploration interesting, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into history. See you next time.